Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Many of you who follow the channel know that I recently went on vacation with my daughter. We were a third of the globe away in Ireland when Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist, was shot. Now, I had never heard of Charlie Kirk, and I was, like I say, a real long way away. I wasn't even in America. And we went into a shop there that had local newspapers. And I'm talking about newspapers from Ireland, newspapers from the UK. And Charlie Kirk's assassination was the lead story in every paper and magazine that they had. It was the number one story right there in Ireland, in 8,000 miles. I don't know how far it is, but a long way away from where we live. It was so important that it captured the attention of not just America, but of the globe. That's how important this case is. Now, we cover a lot of really important legal cases on this channel, but this case is different, I think. I think it's different because it strikes at the heart of who we are as Americans. Do we believe in free speech no matter what? Do we or don't we? Are we committed to the idea of a fair trial no matter what, no matter who? Are we people who will do that? Do we believe that? And ultimately, it also asks a really hard question that it is time for America to confront because I think we are divided on it. What do we believe about the death penalty? So I started this channel because I could see so many people wanting to understand more about these important legal cases that we read about in the newspaper every day, that we hear about in the news. To me, it's not a question that we should cover this, because to be an informed American, to be able just to participate in one of the most important debates of our lifetimes, you need facts. Not just social media posts, not just rumors. You need actual facts. And that's our goal here on this channel. In another video, I'm going to cover the law, what the exact charges are against Tyler Robinson, who is accused of shooting Charlie Kirk as he spoke to a group at UVU. And I've already built out a timeline for you to make sure that you understand what happened and when, how all of these things relate to each other. But before we get to those videos, we need to start with the beginning, the fundamentals. What exactly do prosecutors claim? While I'm thinking about it, would you please hit the like button so that we can get the video out to more people? I would appreciate that. Special shout out to our first 5 in tonight's chat: Sky Goddess, Loretta Powell, Dial M for Mildred, Bama Queen, and I'm looking through to find who is my 5th person. Michael, great to have all of you here tonight. So, before we begin and dive into exactly what the claims by prosecutors are, we need to start with the fundamentals. We need to start with what they claim, but we also have to be really clear that Tyler Robinson is entitled to a defense. And right now, we don't know what it's going to be. He's going to get lawyers, a lawyer, and almost certainly many more than that, who will be paid by taxpayers. But at this point, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the defense. He's not ready. So we are going to be talking about the prosecutor's side of the case with full knowledge that there is more to come and that we do need to hear what he has to say. Under American law, he is presumed to be innocent until the prosecution meets its burden of proof, or he is presumed not guilty. Let me put it that way. So we'll also look hard at whether he has confessed, because of course that's going to make the state's case very, very strong. So let's take a look at exactly what the charges are and talk about them specifically. Now, I told you another night I'm going to do what the actual legal charges against him are and explain those to you. So for tonight, I'm just going to speak very generally. Count 1 is aggravated murder, and that's that he shot and killed Charlie Kirk. There are some additional things with it. They specifically gave notice that this charge could carry the death penalty. There is a victim targeting enhancement that talks about the fact that the prosecution believes he targeted Charlie Kirk because of what Charlie Kirk was saying, because of his politics and what he was saying politically. Then there was also the allegation that it was committed in the presence of a child, because there were children there, children under the age of 18, present to hear Charlie Kirk speak. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury. Number 3 is obstruction of justice, and that was specifically concealing or removing the firearm that was used to shoot Charlie Kirk. Count 4 is obstruction of justice. That's getting rid of the clothes he was wearing. Count 5, tampering with a witness, and that is his interaction with his roommate. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but primarily I'm going to do another video on that, looking at the text messages and how those will be used legally in the case. Number 6, tampering with a witness, and that's telling the witness to stay silent if police ask questions. Number 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, which is a misdemeanor that is tacked on or added when there's a crime that could justify it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the probable cause statement, because that's the heart of what I want to look at tonight. All right, and I'm going to read it and kind of talk about it as we go through. It's several pages, I think about 3 in total that we're going to be reading. Brian Davis of the Utah State Bureau of Investigations, having probable cause to believe that the defendant committed the above listed offenses, submitted the following evidence in support of the filing of this information. So it's just telling you who it comes from, the Utah State Bureau of Investigations. It's the Utah version of the FBI. And this is what's called a probable cause statement, a statement where you are telling the court, you, a prosecutor bringing this, would be telling the court, here are the reasons that we believe we have probable cause to believe Tyler Robinson is guilty. These are the reasons, the facts that we believe support it. On September 10th, 2025, at approximately 12:23 p.m., Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to a large crowd on the campus of Utah Valley University, UVU, in Orem, Utah. Police found the suspected murder weapon, a bolt-action .30-06 rifle, nearby. Over the next approximately 33 hours, police conducted a manhunt for the shooter until the evening of September 11th, 2025. So it was a 24-hour, more than that, 33-hour period of time when they were looking for him. They did actually find the murder weapon. That is going to be a centerpiece of the state's case because it is critical evidence, and you're about to hear more about why. So on September 11th, Tyler James Robinson surrendered to police at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. DNA consistent with Robinson was found on the rifle's trigger. After shooting Mr. Kirk, Robinson hid the gun, discarded the clothing he wore when he fired the rifle, and told his lover roommate to delete incriminating text messages and not to talk to police. Children were present at the time of the shooting. So they're laying out the basic facts that would support the charges that we read really quickly right above. So now they're going to lay out what happened in the shooting. Turning Point USA, a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk, organized a public outdoor event to be held at noon on September 10th, 2025 at UVU. The event was the first in a series of similar events to be held at college campuses nationwide. Mr. Kirk is a well-known conservative activist famous for these types of events where he discusses various political issues and debates with audience members. His events and comments have garnered a significant number of supporters and drawn the ire of many who disagree with his political views. So they've set up, okay, what's the reason that we think this happened? That tags back into the allegation specifically that this was targeting Charlie Kirk because of what he had to say, because of the actual facts that he believed, because of his political beliefs. That's what they are saying is the motive for the killing. And that carries weight under the law. We'll talk about that more when we get to the night when I do unpack it legally. So the event at UVU was announced far in advance and garnered significant publicity and interest. Now, why is that important? Of course, for the idea that this was intentional and planned. This wasn't a sudden last minute decision. This was intentional. He actually wanted to commit this crime and planned it in advance. You're going to see more information about that on the night when we cover the text messages between the roommate, because there's talk about how long he had been planning this. So consequently, several hundred people attended. Mr. Kirk was interacting with the crowd before the event officially got underway. Then approximately at noon, Mr. Kirk seated himself under a portable canopy behind a table and microphone. He began speaking to the crowd and fielding questions from attendees, a format Mr. Kirk commonly used at his events. Mr. Kirk allowed his questioners to approach a microphone positioned directly in front of him. Mr. Kirk's team members were very close to him on the right and left, as well as some behind his canopy and others at various close locations near him. The large crowd surrounded Mr. Kirk on three sides. Temporary metal fencing separated attendees from Mr. Kirk by only a matter of feet. Directly above and behind Mr. Kirk was the UVU Hall of Flags, an indoor walkway spanning several hundred feet with floor to ceiling glass windows, which overlooked the plaza where Mr. Kirk was seated. People were in the walkway at the time of the shooting. Why is that important that people were in the walkway at the time of shooting? It's because of the fact that one of the enhancement issues is whether, and in fact, one of the things related to the first-degree murder charge and the death penalty was that other people might have been endangered. And so they're filling out how many people were here, how many other people might have been endangered. That's going to relate specifically to the question of whether or not they can get the death penalty. Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. That will be critically important because of the fact that he was speaking directly to an issue that the prosecutors are going to say was on the mind of Tyler Robinson, the shooter. And of course, there will be speculation around who is this person who asked the question about transgender individuals, and how is that related to Tyler Robinson's shooting at that exact time? Was it coincidence? Was it fully planned and intended and the two of them were working together? Or was this just something that he waited for? It wasn't planned. He just heard that and it triggered him, in the sense of bad expression. It caused him to react. What exactly is the connection? That's going to be really important, not just to the issue of why the shooting was done, but also to the question of whether anyone else was involved, whether anyone else needs to be included in charges or will be included in charges. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner, who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. The medical examiner's report is pending. So why do they mention children being visible? Because that's part of the enhancement. Remember that this was done in front of children who would have been traumatized by this. Then the fact that they mentioned the bullet's trajectory passing close to the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk made me think that they may believe that person had no connection to the shooting, maybe was unrelated. And whether or not this was coincidence or whether or not the Tyler Robinson waited for exactly that question, we don't yet know what the prosecution is going to allege. The UVU surveillance investigation. And now they're going to talk about what exactly was done in terms of investigation. One of the reasons this is so important is not just to explain what they did and to kind of move the timeline and chronology along. It's also because a key defense will be that there was no real attempt to find other potential, well, I should say, I think it's very likely to be that there was no real attempt to try to find other people who might have done this. They zeroed in on Tyler Robinson, and then they did not bother to look around. And so that part of what the prosecution is doing right here is explaining, we did look. Here's what we did right away to find out who did it and what we did to go through our investigation to reach the person who did this, Tyler Robinson. At the moment, so let's keep reading. At the moment of the shot, a UVU police officer, the UVU officer is how they're referred to him, was watching the crowd from an elevated vantage point. As soon as he heard the shot, he began to scan the area for threats. Believing the shot came from a rifle because of its sound, he looked for potential sniper positions. He noted a roof area approximately 160 yards away from Mr. Kirk as a potential shooting position and rushed there to look for evidence. The suspected shooting position is adjacent to an open, publicly accessible walkway. To access the suspected location, a person must climb over a railing and then drop to the roof only slightly below. The UVU officer climbed over the railing and down onto the roof. He then walked to the suspected shooting position and confirmed a clear shooting corridor between the position and Mr. Kirk's seat. He also noticed markings in the gravel rooftop consistent with a sniper having lain on the roof, impressions in the gravel potentially left by the elbows, knees, and feet of a person in a prone shooting position. So what they're doing is, because they are immediately going to follow up and look at any kind of camera video evidence that might relate to this particular area, that might show someone going into the area, someone leaving the area. So they're saying we suspected this might have been the location. We could see evidence that someone had been there, and now we're going to go get more evidence about what happened on that rooftop. So police reviewed surveillance from the camera covering the roof and discovered that it recorded an individual dressed in dark clothing cross the railing from the public walkway and drop onto the roof at approximately 12:15 p.m. Although the individual moved out of the camera's view for a short time, the camera again captured the individual running across the roof and then low crawling to the area the UVU officer recognized as where the suspected sniper had dropped into a prone shooting position. After a short time, which matches the known time of the shot, the individual arose and ran across the roof to the northeast. And another night, we'll actually take a look at that video. You'll be able to see the video that they found. I'll use that in connection with the timeline, which will probably be, that may be tomorrow night or Wednesday. I'm not sure which, but definitely, if you aren't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so you will know when we go live, because we're going to be going into detail, and that timeline is going to help you understand the entire case as it's all put together. All right. Where were we? The discovery, we were talking about okay. This discovery led to an intensive review of UVU surveillance recordings to attempt to track and identify the suspect. Surveillance revealed the following. At approximately 11:51 a.m., the suspect entered campus from the north. He is seen wearing a black shirt with an American flag in its center, a dark baseball cap, and large sunglasses. Throughout the surveillance, the suspect keeps his head down and rarely raises his head enough to get a clear image of his face. As he proceeds across the campus, he is seen walking with an unusual gait. The suspect walks with very little bending in his right leg, consistent with a rifle being hidden in his pants. This unusual gait continues until the suspect is seen crossing the railing off the open walkway and onto the roof, where he leaves the camera's view. Now, this rifle is going to be really important and the clothing is going to be really important, assuming we do move on to trial, because the defense is going to point out that they believe that Tyler Robinson came to campus in a different outfit. He's now in a second outfit. Now, he was driving. He could have changed in his car or anywhere along the route, but those are two different outfits. And so they may argue Tyler Robinson isn't the guy because he's wearing two different outfits. The the strange gait that they mentioned, the way he was walking. There is, they have not released the video that they talk about, but TMZ obtained a video that shows the person they believe walking with a very strange gait. It's just like one leg is straight and it's sort of a limp, I guess you would call it. And part of the issue will be if he had his gun concealed in his pants and was walking strangely, which could be why he would change out of shorts and into long pants. That would make sense. But if that's the case, what does he jump down from the roof with? And we'll look at that in another video when we look at that exact video, when we look at him jumping off the roof, the suspect jumping off the roof. A camera later captures the suspect as he runs across the roof to the suspected shooting position. Immediately after the shot was fired, a camera captures the suspect running across the roof carrying an item whose shape is consistent with a rifle. The suspect is then seen climbing down from the roof. He appears to drop the item he was carrying as he hits the ground in a controlled fall. He then picks up the item and runs toward the northeast end of campus. And it's a pretty long drop. And to me, not at all clear that he's carrying a rifle, but we will look at that and we'll talk about what exactly the proof is that the prosecution has there. Expanded crime scene investigation. Law enforcement officers followed the suspect's escape path to the northeast end of campus, where they believe the suspect left campus and entered a wooded area. In that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel. That is going to be critically important because it's actual physical evidence. And it's something that is referenced in the text messages that allegedly went between Tyler Robinson and his roommate. The rifle contained 1 spent round and 3 unspent rounds. This is consistent with the facts officers observed at the time of and immediately after the shooting. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. So they're saying the rifle we found fits the facts. There was 1 bullet fired at Charlie Kirk and 1 bullet in the rifle. There were 3 unspent in there, and we're going to hear something very unique and special about it, about these particular casings. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription. Fired cartridge had notices bulge, OWO, what's this? The second cartridge said, hey, fascist, catch, and had arrow symbols. The third cartridge said, oh, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow. And the fourth cartridge, if you read this, you're gay, LMAO. So we know that that was etched on there. And we're going to take a look in one of our next videos at those text messages and how what Tyler Robinson says about the etching and what he had been doing with bullets, because he says to his roommate, you've seen me putting sketches on there, etchings on those. And he was, so that would tie him into it. And it's going to be part of the evidence, not just what was said, which of course the prosecution is going to argue is evidence that the reason Charlie was killed was motivated by his political beliefs, which were opposite of what Tyler Robinson believed. So the rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing. DNA consistent with Robinson's was found on the trigger, other parts of the rifle, the fired cartridge casing, 2 of the 3 unfired cartridges, and the towel. All critically important because that's a way potentially to link Tyler Robinson. And we're going to hear from the FBI that they do believe they've linked that. Law enforcement was unable to immediately locate the shooter, so they published photos of the shooter from the UVU surveillance cameras and asked for the public's help to identify him. Meanwhile, law enforcement continued to try to identify the shooter through other means. And in fact, that's ultimately what they did. Thank you to Jackie P for gifting 5 lawyerly memberships. I appreciate that. Okay, the Washington County investigation. We're now going to turn from the local investigation. That was the expanded crime scene investigation. They're now taking a look at it. Remember, they started with the UVU surveillance investigation. So the UVU campus police officers uh, began it, and then it moved into expanded crime scene with law enforcement officers, and they're going to now detail the Washington County investigation. On the evening of September 11th, 2025, as law enforcement continued their investigation, Tyler James Robinson went to the Washington County Sheriff's Office with his parents and a family friend to turn himself in. Now, turning himself in does not mean that he's acknowledging and admitting that he did this necessarily. It does mean that he's acknowledging that he believes he may need to turn himself in because they may suspect him. So there will be a distinction between that potentially. Just the fact that he showed up at the police station doesn't mean he's confessed to the crime necessarily. Robinson's mother stated the following to police. On September 11th, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspected shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. We're going to talk about the parents in just a minute. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. So this, obviously, the statements by the mother are important to the prosecution for showing what Robinson's beliefs were and how he already knew and realized Charlie Kirk would be present at that day and time, and that he would be speaking at this event, and that he disagreed with Kirk's views. Those all relate back to that charge and that enhancement issue of why this particular person was targeted. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. Now, I want you to just kind of picture for a minute what this had to have been like within the family dynamics. It is the worst nightmare, I think, any family could experience, and certainly would be the case for Tyler Robinson's parents, as well as for Tyler, because they are close, but they are also estranged in terms of their politics. Tyler doesn't agree with his father, and now the parents are in the position of believing that their son has committed this crime and of having to make a decision about what exactly they're going to do. How are they going to handle this? How is Tyler going to handle this? Overlay that with the fact that they are now worried for Tyler because he seems to be quite desperate and he seems to be very concerned about what he's going to do next. They are now worried about him. So we're going to see what happened. As they discussed this situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. As at Robinson's father's request, the family friend met with Robinson and his parents and convinced Robinson to turn himself in. So again, There was a statement earlier that Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. He implied that he might have been involved. But here, that when asked why he did it, Robinson explained there's too much evil and the guy spreads too much hate. So again, the prosecution, I think, will argue that some of these statements to the parents were a confession or very akin, very close to it. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. The family friend also asked Robinson if he had any clothes that were related to what he did. Robinson replied that he had disposed of the clothes in different areas. So, to the extent that they find that clothing, more physical evidence that they can use to link Robinson to the crime and to link Robinson to a potential confession where he has acknowledged having the clothes and leaving them around, so concealing them. That's one of the counts against him, is related to concealing and trying to hide that clothing. That obviously will also be part of what the state argues when they argue that he is fully aware of what he's doing, that he is not mentally unstable, and that he should be held fully accountable for what he did. So we're going to do the roommate another night. I want to just real quickly zip down here to the search of Robinson's residence. Police executed a search warrant on Robinson's residence, which was not with his parents. During that search, police discovered a shell casing with etchings like the etchings found on the shells in the rifle near UVU. Police also found several targets with bullet holes in Robinson's home. So again, these are ways that they are going to try to hook Tyler Robinson in, that the etchings found on the shells in the rifle are similar to what they found in his home, that there were targets with bullet holes as if he had been practicing up so that he would be proficient when he shot Charlie Kirk. So, and then it's simply they mention again what the counts are and sign off, and we'll handle the rest in another video. Let me remove that, and so we can just talk about it. Thank you again, Jackie. I really appreciated that. All right, so what we'll do right now is a few questions. If you have some questions, if you would put question marks at the beginning, I would really appreciate it. That'll help me spot your question in the chat. I think I see a comment from Barbara Flagg about how heartbreaking this is, and the Robinson family, especially the parents, that very confused young man, the family of Charlie Kirk, just tragic. I could not agree more. And it is truly an American tragedy. And it's one where I think it's so important that we talk about it, that we can't just sweep this under the rug and say, this is politics and I don't like politics. I don't like politics, but I think we have to talk about it. I think it's that important and that fundamental to what we believe. So I could not agree with you more, Barbara. Thank you very much for your comment. All right. Thank you. John, I appreciate your super chat. You say the prosecution might argue the conversation with the parents is a confession. I'm biased and think it is a confession. What would make it not a confession legally? At other points in what they've written, the prosecution has referred to it as he implied with his parents. It was an implied confession. I think that may have been in one of the FBI statements. I can't remember exactly where I saw that. So depending on the words that were actually used, that's what I mean. I think the prosecution will argue clearly this was a confession. I agree that they will argue that, but without more detail about what the words are. And given that I did read somewhere that there was just the allegation he had implied it with his parents, I'm trying to be cautious because I don't know. And I want to be specific with you. I would not be at all surprised. In fact, let me change that, John. I would be shocked if the prosecution doesn't argue that it's an overt confession. But I just feel like I need more facts before I say that. But I really appreciate your question and being really attentive to those details. Thank you very much. Lulu wants to know, is it possible he's still alive and is onto his next role? I'm sorry, I don't know who you mean. Do you mean Charlie Kirk? I don't think so. I believe he was shot in front of everybody. So In my view, no, that's not a possibility. And Tyler Robinson is still alive too because he's in custody. So I'm not sure about the question. Lisa G asking, do you think he will try to take a deal since the evidence seems strong against him? Okay, Lisa, it's such a good question. And it's really hard to answer. Here's why. Would he take a deal? Yes. I think he probably would take a deal. It does appear there's a mountain of evidence. It appears that he confessed, and we haven't even covered the text messages to the roommate, where you could argue there were more confessions and more links to Tyler Robinson. We'll cover that another night. But as far as taking a deal, yes, I think he would be willing to do that. The problem is this. If the prosecution is going to seek the death penalty, then they are going to need to try at least that portion of the case related to the death penalty, that he can't just get out of it. And of course, there's no reason for him to plead guilty or to take any deal unless they take that off the table. Is it possible that there will be a deal struck just like in the Kohberger case? Yes, entirely possible. That what they'll do, he will go to the prosecutors, they will go to him and they will discuss, how about if we take the death penalty off the table and you agree to life in prison without parole? Possible. That definitely could happen. But as far as if what they want to do is pursue the death penalty, then there can't be, it's unlikely that there would be a deal. What are they offering him if they continue to pursue the death penalty? I don't see any reason for him to just take that. He might as well go to trial. Yeah, Cray Finnery, this was, I had some questions around this too. Confused about that common courtesy of not searching the parent's home. Is that customary or suspicious to you? So I don't think I saw that. The way they phrased it was, let's go back to that and get it exactly right. The family friend spoke to police and reported telling Robinson that it would be best if he brought all evidence with him to the sheriff's office to avoid police having to search his parents' home. So that is not the statement by police that they are not going to search the parents' home. It's just a suggestion by the family friend, who I think had some law enforcement connection, but was not law enforcement or speaking on behalf of law enforcement. So I don't think there's been any promise that they're not going to search the home of the parents. In fact, I would think it's pretty likely that they would at some point search the home of the parents. Now, he wasn't living there at the time. And so I think what he was being told was, grab your stuff, don't leave stuff around, because then they have to come search your parents' house. Like, you just got here, you got your jacket here and your, whatever you got with you, your wallet over here, pick everything up and take it with you. Don't give them a need to come back here just to get the stuff that you acknowledge you left at your parents' home. Pick that up, take it with you. And then only if they need to search in the future will they do so. So that's just my guess. But I don't think I don't think the family friend had the authority to offer that. I don't think that was a real thing. Lolo wants to know about the entire, let me take that out. Isn't it odd that the entire crime scene was removed right after they took Charlie away, including the 2 professional cameras? Normally cops secure a crime scene, but this was all removed. I can't really answer that. I don't know what exactly was removed, Lolo. So I can't really say. Typically it is true that cops secure a crime scene. They may have been more focused on the rooftop where they believed someone had shot and on finding the gun. I don't know exactly what got taken away. It does seem like they quickly grabbed surveillance video, so they didn't let that get gone. But I don't know anything about the particular cameras that you're talking about, specifically the professional cameras you mentioned. All right, looking for question marks at the beginning, so I will know that what exactly you're asking, and can spot questions in the middle of this. Yes, I do normally avoid politics like the plague on this channel. I do. But, sometimes I think a case breaks through that is important and fundamental to what we believe and to what we think about free speech and what we think in this case about the death penalty and think about fair trials. And to me, this is one of those cases. And that's why I am breaking my previously ironclad rule that I do not discuss politics. I've I have never addressed any of the Trump cases or anything like that. I tried very hard not to. I think this is different. Dollyhood asking about the offender being a student. I don't believe the offender was a student there. Bright Star wants to know why the parents didn't want their house searched. Well, I can't answer for the parents, and nothing in what was written says that the parents didn't want their house searched. It was just that the family friend said, um, it, grab your stuff because otherwise they have to come search your parents' house. That's what it sounds like to me, the way it's written. And again, he didn't have the authority to promise that. He just was suggesting go ahead and grab everything so that you've cleared out your parents' house. It certainly does seem like the parents were very eager to cooperate with police. And so there wouldn't be maybe probable cause to search their home unless there was a belief that there was a connection to something Tyler Robinson had there. And they have to, after all, the police have to get a search warrant. They can't just walk into the parents' home. If Tyler Robinson left things there on after committing the crime, well, then obviously they have a need to search there and they would have a reason to go get that search warrant. But as far as why you wouldn't want your house searched, uh, getting your house searched is, first of all, invasive in terms of how people feel about it, but it also can leave a fair amount of damage in as they rummage through everything. So I think in general, people would prefer not to have that. I don't think that in and of itself suggests anything specific. YouTube user asked me a very well, Mama Pink says, let me take Mama Pink's first. Mama Pink says, you're not discussing politics, you're discussing the legal side of the event. I agree. That is it. Mama Pink's, by the way, one of our two mods, Mama Pink's and Marlon. So appreciative to both of them. That is very true. I'm not discussing the politics of what Charlie Kirk believed, the politics of what Tyler Robinson believed, but I am discussing who we are as Americans and what we believe in terms of our legal system. I think that matters. I don't think we can run from that discussion, even though it has political overtones. And even though there is dissension about it, it matters so much that running away from it is dangerous. Running away from it means that we are putting our heads in the sand in a debate when we need to have a presence. People watching this channel tend to know a lot about the legal system and a lot about legal cases. We are the very people who should be discussing this, who should be making sure that the system remains fair in the most difficult test case you can imagine. A YouTube user asking me a really interesting question. Is this likely to remain a Utah case or go federal? Up until now, currently, the charges have been filed on the Utah side. One of the reasons that one of the reasons it might go federal, as with Luigi Mangione, is that the federal government might use a death penalty when, for example, New York, which is prosecuting also Luigi Mangione, wouldn't have the death penalty available. In this case, Utah has the death penalty available. I wouldn't be surprised to see parallel proceedings running along, but right now, Utah has at least mentioned the death penalty as an option for one of the charges, the capital murder, but it hasn't said specifically, we do plan to pursue that. If the state of Utah decided to take that off the table, then there might be some more push for federal government to step in and put the death penalty back on the table. That would really complicate any sort of agreement between Utah and Tyler Robinson. That would make it difficult to make that agreement if the federal government wanted to step in on top of that. So all of that is just off in the future. We don't really know. But it's a great question, really good, very interesting area. Freddie's cat wants to know, is the roommate off the hook? I think the answer to that is no, but it certainly appears that the roommate has been cooperative and that law enforcement is not looking specifically at the roommate as being involved, but I think they've held off. They haven't really said we've decided this person is not involved. So I believe they're leaving the door open for more evidence to show one way or the other. The roommate, however, does appear to be working with them. If you look at the text messages, which we are going to cover in another video, then you will see that there are a lot of questions suggesting that the roommate did not know. A lot of questions, a lot of statements suggesting the roommate did not know in advance about this. And so the law enforcement may believe they don't have evidence to suggest that he had any knowledge that this was going to happen. One of the things they did not provide in this statement is the exact time of some of these text messages, which could make a difference. We will cover that when I get to that video, so be sure to hit the subscribe button. We would love to have you back for more, and we're going to be covering a lot of super interesting things about this case and other cases that are in the news. All right, DJNEODA1. Wow, that is really, I'm sure I should be able to figure out how that is pronounced. But anyway, says, do we have all the campus security camera footage? I've only seen the short video of him coming off the roof. You are absolutely right. We have not received everything that's out there. We've received a certain few things that were released to the public that were part of their investigation when they were attempting to find Tyler Robinson, but they have not released everything that they have. And they even reference video. For example, the video of him supposedly with a strange gait, and they believe that was the shooter, and they believe that was Tyler Robinson walking with this funny gait with his jeans, maybe because a rifle was inside his jeans. We don't have official release of that. TMZ has a video that is in a neighborhood, looks like maybe a Ring camera or something like that. And that video shows somebody walking with that gait, that strange gait that was described. It might well be the same as what law enforcement is talking about, or they might have something different, something more that would come out at trial or closer to trial. All right, well, we go live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, but I believe I'm going to do another video tomorrow night because we have a lot to cover. There is a lot to cover. So John asks the question, and I appreciate your question and your super chat. How much power does Erica, that is Charlie Kirk's wife, have were she to request no death penalty for Robinson? John, she doesn't get to make that call. That call will be made by prosecutors as they consult with their group of local attorneys. It could be, I don't know if they are under an attorney general, but those questions will be decided in the prosecution office by whatever means they have to make that decision. But would they take into account the request of the wife of the victim? Very possibly, yes. I think it could be something that would be listened to if she made that request. But they also might ask that she wait on that so they could use it as part of negotiation. If she makes that request and they go ahead and take it off the table, then they don't have anything left to negotiate with Tyler Robinson. So there may be a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we won't be privy to. But Erica ultimately doesn't get that choice, but she might have some influence over it were she to do that. All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow night. See you soon.